You always want to look for diseased limbs like fire blight, which is a bacterial infection, and that can kill the whole tree. You know, there's definitely, I'm looking here, there's definitely indications of some aphids. You could spray this tree with horticultural oil.
I started almost like a stick over here.
Okay.
And the issue I find with that, whenever I bring it inside and with proper lights and everything, it almost starts failing in winter.
Over the years with my peach tree is, yeah, you look at it, you're like, oh, this thing's covered with fruit. And then you end up with these tiny little peaches with no taste. And this is a great example how trees heal themselves. So this is an old wound here. You want to keep this, you want to keep the old woody growth, and you want to get rid of all this stuff because it puts fruit on the new growth.
Hello everyone, welcome to our channel, my friend Bob. Today we're discussing something very different than what we typically do because we have our friend Guy over.
He specializes in trees. His professional life has moved and he can explain himself. Today we just want to talk about fruit trees. It's important. There's a difference how you take care of fruit trees compared to ornamental trees.
Feels like 100 years ago, I went to work for apple orchard one winter back in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm an arborist by trade, and work was slow, and I went to go work for this orchard. And the first thing the orchard owner told me my first day was everything about ornamental pruning, throw out the window because we're pruning for fruit production. So we're going to be talking about how to prune for fruit. First thing I see here, this is an apple tree, way too tall. We're going to talk about that. The first thing I want to talk about is if you don't know what to do at all when you come to a tree, first thing to do is any sort of dead wood like this, take out, okay? You don't want any sort of dead wood in the tree. They call that sanitation pruning. And this tree doesn't have it. You always want to look for diseased limbs like fire blight, which is a bacterial infection, and that can kill the whole tree. So fire blight, you don't have it, but what will happen is that the limb will start to get flaky and looks like dead wood. The bark will still be on it, but it gets very flaky and raggedy looking. Cut that limb off. No matter how big it is, cut it out because that will spread through the entire tree and kill the tree. And disinfect your tools. And it's very simple. Get a can of Lysol. That's what I've always used. And you come to any sort of diseased looking limb. Once you cut it, spray down your tools and wipe it clean, okay? Second thing with this apple tree is you want to bring the height down. This is way too tall. And most important with apple trees is you want to prune them in a pyramid shape so you get equal distribution of sunlight throughout the tree. So I would definitely bring this down. And when you bring this tree down, I don't know if you can show, you want to prune back to a limb that's actually kind of growing like this. This would be a perfect limb because you want this tree now to grow out so you can actually pick the fruit. Another thing we used to do in the orchard is upright limbs like this. I know this is probably going to sound complicated, but if you can picture, you know, we put sticks. You don't want this growing up like this. You want this like this. So we actually used to put forked sticks to the trunk. You follow what I'm saying?
So you're pushing it down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's very important. You can actually put strings and tie it off to the ground too. I've seen that done. And then once you start doing that, then you can kind of shape it into a pyramid shape.
Because the reason I asked you for come over today was specifically for the same reason. A few years ago, I did ask somebody to trim these trees, and they did trim a few trees,
Mhm.
but they were from the ornamental world.
Yeah.
So I think, one, I cannot get to the height when fruit happens.
Right.
The
Exactly.
second is, I don't think they did what's supposed to be done.
Right.
Whatever rules you're telling about apple tree, would that work for peach and every other tree, or
Yeah.
there are different rules?
Peach trees also. You want that shape. Also timing of fruit tree pruning. Apple trees and pear trees, wintertime. Don't prune during the growing season. You prune apples and pears in the wintertime. You prune peach trees early spring. That's when we did all the pruning in the orchard was in the wintertime. Another thing is to remember is that apple trees bear fruit on the second year of growth. So you don't want to go in there and take everything out. What you do want to do is also thin out the growth. So you don't want a tree covered with blossoms, covered with fruit, because you're going to get small fruit. You want the tree thinned out, so the fruit that's set, you get decent sized fruit.
Now,
And that's a big thing with peaches. I learned over the years with my peach tree is, yeah, you look out, you're like, oh, this thing's covered with fruit, and then you end up with these tiny little peaches with no taste. You want decent sized fruit.
so the tree we're looking at is almost like 22 years old.
Okay.
And yes, it needs help right now. It
Yep.
also has some disease going on,
Yeah.
which happens to apples. Let's come to a tree which is like 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
What would you say?
Again, take the tops down. You want to shape this you want to bring the height down, and you want to shape it so that you're going to maximize the amount of fruit you get, but you're able to pick it.
One other thing, you said winter.
Mhm.
I have always heard that do things in fall. When you say winter, are we talking about when
Dead of winter.
dead of winter?
Yes, that's when you prune apple trees. Yep.
So
You
now,
prune too early. If you prune in the fall and you prune too early, and it's a very warm fall, if you get any sort of new growth coming in, sucker growth, and it gets cold all of a sudden, you're going to get dieback.
now, I don't do it properly. What's the concept about fertilizing these trees?
Don't. No nitrogen. You introduce a fertilizer has a high nitrogen content. Trees are very efficient. They're going to take that nitrogen and they're going to say, the heck with fruit production. I'm going to put out all new growth, and you're going to get a tree that's all green growth. You don't. If you feel you have to fertilize them, then you're going to have to go with something with phosphorus or potassium. But I don't fertilize fruit trees.
So with this tree, what's wrong with this right now? I planted this, I think 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Did you get fruit?
I do get fruit,
You do get fruit.
but I'd also have squirrels. So I
Well,
don't get any fruit.
That's a big problem.
We have talked about squirrels in our last video.
Yeah.
So if I do get these trees to a manageable size,
Put netting over.
then you can put matting.
Yeah.
Again, an apple tree. What's wrong over here?
Well, it's young. You got some cedar apple rust. It's a fungicide. You probably have some cedar trees in the neighborhood. Again, this is a formative age. You could start shaping this so you get what you want for fruit production. That's a young tree.
So
give
we
it
have other
time.
trees, and off camera I started asking you, and you did say that that's not a specialty. I have a persimmon tree.
Yeah.
And what has happened is the leaves have started falling much earlier than Any idea?
Yeah. Well, there's probably a multiple things going on. This is definitely this is, I don't have my glasses on, but this looks like aphid damage. They will do this. They'll curl the leaf like that, and you got the black staining from the frass. But the fact that all the leaves are droopy like this, it's got to be something in the ground. So if I was you, you dig around the base of the tree here, and you look for what's called girdling root. And a lot of times a root will start wrapping itself around the trunk of the tree and strangles the tree. And that would be one symptom of the leaf dropping like that. Another one is water issues. It's been very hot and dry. People tend not to water established trees like this. They need water. And I don't think sprinkler systems do them justice either. Come out here in the evening, start watering this tree. And there's definitely, I'm looking here, there's definitely indications of some aphids. You could spray this tree with horticultural oil. It's safe for the environment and will knock out aphid populations.
So there are trees that you can leave outside, apples and some of the other trees we talked about. But we live in a cold weather. There are trees that they cannot. So what I do is I have them in pots, and then I bring them inside during winter.
Okay.
Some lemon, lime, oranges, and some others. I have an avocado which I started from a pit. I know it will not give me a true avocado.
Okay.
Anything that needs to be done to trees like that?
Yeah, well, the number one thing, when you bring them in the winter, do you have them on a light, a grow light?
Yes.
That's important. Otherwise, the lemon will fail. I've known people that are very skilled with lemon trees. It takes a lot of work. It's a little off color. Okay.
It has to be darker?
I would say you need a bigger pot. Okay. And you got to really keep this well watered. Look at that. It's floated with white fly. You got to spray this. You see all that white stuff that came off there? That's usually an indication that this tree is under stress. So definitely a bigger pot. That's a big issue for these trees. They got to be in decent sized pots. And I would spray this with horticultural oil also. Read the formulation, because I use with my business all season horticultural oil. The traditional horticultural oil was only used during the dormant season because it was a thick grade mineral oil. Now they have a grade that you can use all season long, but you have to read the directions. Anytime you use any sort of pesticide, read the direction. And more sometimes is not good. My father, when he used to spray the pear trees, would, it says 1 ounce of material. I'm going to put in 5 ounces. That's not good. You can do some serious damage to the tree. So bigger pot, keep this well watered. I would use a nice humus potting type soil. And with these, keep them manageable. And the big thing is with those lights in the wintertime. Now,
So-
I've had friends that have filled with lemons and limes. It's a lot of, these trees are a lot of work, but it can be rewarding when they produce, because they produce in the wintertime.
So now with trees like this, I need to, so this size, so
Mhm.
you're what, 6 feet tall?
Yeah.
So the tree is a bit taller than you.
Mhm.
So it should be shortened?
You know what? This is still manageable. I would let them grow. Let them put on more growth. But the biggest thing is, this definitely needs a bigger pot.
What about my pomegranate? I started almost like a stick over here.
Okay.
And the issue I find with that, whenever I bring it inside and with proper lights and everything, it almost starts failing in winter.
I don't know much about pomegranates. I don't know. Pot size, or
So probably heavy feeding?
you might want to try that. Yeah. Yeah, because you're not going to get any fruit now from this pomegranate. So give it some nitrogen, give it some fertilizer, and see what happens. I don't think that'd be a bad idea. It's just that, you know, you don't want to add, when you got trees that are producing fruit, you don't want to give them a high nitrogen fertilizer.
Oh, so it's only when they're producing food, or
Yes,
always?
yes. When they're young, you can fertilize them, but you know, when they start fruiting, you know, you don't want to introduce nitrogen, because it's going to put green growth.
So, guys, this is an apple tree.
Okay.
I planted, I think, like 10, 12 years ago. In the first year, it produced some flowers and things like that. Right now, it looks bad.
Yep.
Should I get rid of it and cut my losses, or could this be saved?
I think it's just crowded out by bigger trees. It needs light, okay, to produce fruit, and it's not getting the light that it needs. So either you cut back the other trees, or you get rid of this one. We talked about fire blight. That's kind of suspicious up there. I don't know if you could see it. The top there, where that topping cut was, there's some.
I don't think, because the tree in the back, you don't really.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of fire blight there. The big thing also, I forgot to mention with the first apple tree, you got to spray them for fruit. You know, I know a lot of people like to do the organic gardening, but these fruit trees require fungicide applications. I use Captan, and I have good results. And it's a series of sprays from bud break to petal fall. So as soon as that bud comes out, I mean, this is pushing new growth right here. So as soon as that bud comes out, that leaf comes out, that's when you start your applications, and you apply your fungicide till the flowers drop off the tree.
There's no organic solution?
You might want to try copper. Copper is not that effective as something like Captan.
But 100 years ago, there were no inorganic solutions. How did they do it at that time?
They used copper and sulfur. They used sulfur during medieval times. They had an understanding about fungicides. And the misconception is, with fungicide use, my tree has a fungus, so I'm going to spray it. And that's not how fungicide works. Fungicide is a preventative. It prevents the spores from getting onto the leaf. So you have to do this as the timing of the application is critical. Mid-season, you can't decide, well, I'm going to spray the trees with fungicide. It's worthless at that point. When the leaf as soon as the leaf emerges, that's when you start with the fungicide sprays.
Now, the other thing which I've seen people do, when they cut a branch or something, they typically take some paint or something and spray.
Yeah, that's
needed or not?
No.
Why?
Because it actually traps fungal pathogens in the cut. Okay, so you want that cut open, and you want that cut to dry out. But what's more important is not so much painting the cut, is proper cuts. Okay, because if you leave a stub like this, okay, that's an improper cut. You're going to get fungus coming in here. You're going to get decay. Let me look for a branch. Let's take a look here. So a proper cut, if you would say you wanted to take this limb off, you want it slightly, you don't want it flush to the trunk, because that'll cause a trunk decay, but you want it slightly right over here. I don't know if you can see with my finger. Slightly here. And what happens is the way a tree heals itself is it grows over a wound and seals up. And if you make an improper cut, if it's too much of a stub, you're going to get dead wood and it's not going to heal properly. And if you cut too far into the trunk, you're going to get rot into the trunk and cause decay. So that's actually the most important part of a tree is the actual pruning cut itself. They used to paint cuts when I first started climbing trees in the tree service. My old boss, I used to have to paint cuts, and it's no longer something that we do in the business. And this is a great example how trees heal themselves. So this is an old wound here. And as you can see, this is called callus tissue. A tree will produce this callus tissue and seal off that wound. And depending on the species of tree, some trees do it quicker, some trees do it slower. So depending on the species, you want to avoid big cuts on trees that tend to heal slower than trees that heal quicker.
So guy, with grapes, I've heard that you cut them down every fall.
Yeah.
What are the rules?
You can do it in the wintertime also. You want to keep this, you want to keep the old woody growth, and you want to get rid of all this stuff because it puts fruit on the new growth. So you want to go through here and you want to get rid of all this stuff. I don't know if you could see with the camera, you could see the difference in color, right? That's the woody stuff. You cut that right here. And in the spring, it'll put out new growth and you get your grapes. And it seems like the birds have gotten all your grapes.
Yes.
This should be loaded.
For that matter, all the trees,
Yeah.
you will realize it has nothing. Either birds or squirrels, they take generally everything.
Yep.
I'm just doing for the animals.
Well, try to save them because this is I don't know if you remember, at my house, I have Cayuga, actually Niagara dessert grapes, and I never really liked them too much for the table, and it was always too little to make wine. And this season I made jelly, and it's delicious. So, try to protect your grapes because there's stuff that fun stuff you can do with it and actually utilize it.
So the link will be in the description. When we went to a guy's house and we did talk about those grapes. So do watch it so you'll learn something different about grapes also. So Guy, thank you so much. Thank you not only for coming over, almost he's 40 minutes away, so that drive on a Sunday, thank you so much.
I loved it. Yep.
And we'll talk again.
Very good.
So I think this was a very informative discussion with Guy. He explained quite a few things, from how to prune fruit trees, how to take care of fruit trees, fertilizers, watering, and so much so forth. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. Keep on watching, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.